Good morning, friends. The Nature Conservancy is an organization that is completely dedicated to conservation and preservation. Hervey McIver is a senior field director for Nature Conservancy, North Carolina. And his mark is really strong in two ways. First, as a professional, longleaf pines to the north, bald-head cypress to the south, red-cockaded woodpeckers among the Marines at Camp Lejeune. A guy who is much more comfortable in a canoe than he is in this place. He comes back to us because he's just really neat. The whole idea of somebody committed to God's earth and the recreation of the places that we have screwed up is just a very wonderful human being. My mentor at Duke was the dean of the chapel, and he reminded me very often that it was never an honor to be invited. It was only an honor to be invited back. We are thrilled to have you, my friend, and he's going to do his presentation on a piece that he touched, the Black River and the bald cypress that sit at the end of that are older than almost everybody in this room. 2,400 years. Herbie, it's a wonder and a joy to have you.
Thank you so much. All right, this is working? Yeah, I can hear it. Well, thank you for being back. I was surprised you said just 2 years ago I was here, because I thought it was before COVID, but COVID is a blur.
How quickly time goes.
It does. But it's great to be back, as someone said, welcome home, because I did, my grandparents lived here, lots of relatives were here. Pretty much everyone's gone now, but, and I spent many a summer down here, working out in fields and what have you, way back in the day. And my supervisor one year is sitting right there, David. He taught me all about breeding cotton.
That was child labor, though.
It was child labor. I was. My lawyer will be seeing yours. But it's a privilege and an honor to be back here and to, instead of talking about longleaf pine and that system, I want to talk about this other site in a little bit east and south of here, the Black River. And that's been a conservation target for a long time, or the Nature Conservancy. We've done a lot of trying to protect the waters, and primarily through protecting the forests alongside those waters. So this is very beautiful like that. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to advance it using this. Now, it all began, our interest in the Black River by an article published in Science magazine in 1988 by this gentleman, Dr. David Staley. He's with the University of Arkansas Tree Ring Lab. In fact, I think he established the Tree Ring Lab with his primary interest not just in looking and trying to find old trees, but to try to find what past climates were like from what you can glean from looking at those old tree rings. So he does this all over the United States, but some globally. I'm not sure how extensive. He was interested in the Southeast. Where are the old trees in the Southeast? He came and reached out to the North Carolina Natural Heritage Program, which is a state agency that is charged with learning of, discovering, managing the information on natural areas in the state of North Carolina, sites that are very much like they were at the time when Columbus showed up and before. And that the Nature Conservancy early on took on, we want to protect those sites as much as possible. Increasingly, and I'll talk a little bit later, we want to connect things. And then with climate change, that's become a an activity, and we're doing peatland restoration, all the carbon in the peat soils, trying to keep them hydrated because a lot of them have been ditched and drained, and it oxidizes, releasing CO2, carbon dioxide into the air. And then we do a lot of other things. Fresh water is becoming an increasing target. We're trying to restore flows on streams so fish can migrate up and down and so forth. Anyway, that's that. I'm going to focus on this one river here, which fortunately has no dams on it. Anyway, he wrote this article. It was published and it said, discovering, he came in and cored these trees. You can see you can see, if I turn it on, this increment borer sticking out of that tree, and in his hand is the part they would have pulled out that has the tree rings on it, if you're not familiar with what that tool is. So he's trying to find hollow trees. Sometimes that's difficult because solid trees, it's hard because a lot of them are sort of these old trees are hollowed out, and pull out a core. And he counted, I got up to, in this case, 1,614 rings of growth in this, not that tree, but a particular tree at that time. And that was the newest, oldest tree, and the oldest bald cypress tree known. And at that time, here it is down here, oldest living trees on Earth, species. Number 10, North Carolina. And so it's noteworthy. The only one in the eastern part. And it's interesting that, let me show a slide. I just wanted to throw a picture in. The oldest tree is bristlecone pine. That may not be the oldest tree. That's just a picture I pulled off from the internet. And there's a great sequoia. But these trees, all of them are conifers. I'm not sure why they kind of can live a long time. All of them are in the Western Hemisphere. And I asked him once, Dr. Staley, about what's over in Asia and things. He said, for whatever reason, these ancient trees are not there. They tend to live, not fully, in kind of harsh environments. The bristlecone pine lives in very arid and very cold. They're like at 10,000 feet on some of those mountains in the Great Basin, where it's not only cold but dry. So it just grows very slowly. Pieces die, but pieces continue to live. And so collectively, that tree is still alive, 5,000 years old. I have no idea about this one in Chile, LLL-Hervey. Giant sequoia, this third oldest tree, and so forth. There's redwood, number 6, and number 10 was bald cypress. So that got our attention. And as a result, here's some of the old trees, and there's several groves of old trees along the river, mostly in this sort of lower and middle section of the river that I'll go into further a little bit and show a map. And when the water's up, you just paddle through them. It can dry down, and you have to drag your boat through it. As a result, we went in there and we started conserving a lot of this land. Now, the best areas were right in here, this section of the river. And I'll put this in better context in a little bit. And that circle is around the first conservation easement we received from a landowner, 27 acres, and in 1989, protecting a stand of old growth trees. And this is a drone video of that section. That's that easement area on the right-hand side, the left side, the left side of the river, and on the right side, that's also protected. This is a view going upstream from that area, and beautiful old trees. They're not huge. They're not like redwoods. They're not like giant sequoia just towering up there. They're more like that bristlecone pine, short and stubby. And the harshness of it, why they seemingly grow so slow, is just the acidity of the water. Black water stream, very sandy, terrain, it's just, nutrients are not quite there and the thing doesn't grow well. So he continued his work. He cored more trees, and he cored trees, all over around the east and all over the country. And in 1998, this article was published also in Science Magazine, but it was picked up. I remember at the time it was picked up by the New York Times. It was a front page article in the New York Times that from evidence on these trees that the two worst droughts in the last, what does it say, 800 years occurred right around the Lost Colony, the late 1580s, and right where the Jamestown was founded. Jamestown was founded in 1607, and that was the beginning of a 7 or 8 year drought. And so the only conclusion you can really make on that is that God really had something about the English he did not like. and so we're there. And anyway, this got more attention to it, and we continued our work, and with more discoveries. In 2017, he was back, and he was doing additional coring. He's only done probably about less than 10% of all the old trees has he cored. So there's probably older trees. But he just one that was, he had 2,624 rings in there. And he would verify this through carbon dating and so forth. That put that tree, at least that particular oldest ring was 605 BC. And 605 BC, Nebuchadnezzar, if you remember the Bible stories, he became king of Babylon. As before he went and sacked Jerusalem and tore down the temple and enslaved the Jewish people. Anyway, so a tree that old, made it jump ahead of redwoods to number 5 with that old. Now that core was 9 feet up in the air because it was hollow down here. So he got a true core up there. And so that tree is older than 2,624 years. And I throw in this is just a something I got from off the internet, to note that when you're coring, you're aiming for that middle. But if you miss the middle, and you come out into here, the oldest wood you're going to get is not the middle. So it's probably, I don't know what the odds are of hitting it. And these rings are pretty darn tight, small, so that it's probably, it could be 100 years older than 2,624 years. I don't know. No one knows. So that's just by the way, please ask questions anytime. I don't mind being interrupted. I'm just sort of up here talking and rambling. And if a question comes to mind, bring it up. The Black River. The Black River is technically begins right here where Six Runs Creek and Coary Creek come in the middle of Sampson County. The South River begins, actually technically the very southern tip of Wake County is in the watershed of the Black River, because this is the South River, which empties into the Black River right here. All right, so Black begins by name at this point, so this is what we're talking about, all the way down. These old trees there have done several things, and here's the church. This is Black River Presbyterian Church in the town of Ivanhoe, which is in southernmost Sampson County on the river, old river town. Of course, any high ground alongside the river became a community because that river was a highway. But these old trees, and I like to think this, they've seen a lot. They're old and wizened-looking trees. They look old. They're not huge, but they just look old. And they've seen, I mean, for over 2,000 years, the only thing they saw in terms of humans were like Native Americans in dugout canoes or what have you, going up and down this river, using it as a highway for a long, long time. And then later, Europeans appeared in the 1700s in the southern Cape Fear and moving up into the Black River. And I stuck in here because this is the Ivanhoe Black River Presbyterian Church, and my great, 5 greats, grandparents are buried there. So, these trees saw, a boat being paddled or however they moved it up the river with the early, mostly Scottish settlers moving up into the interior of North Carolina. And he came in 1774. I do know that. So, and then they saw the naval stores, barges going downriver full of barrels of turpentine and tar and pitch, timber, rafts of timber being floated down, the clearing of farmland. These rivers have seen it all. And I wanted to give you a little bit of geographic, topographic context to this. I find this interesting myself, so maybe it'll run off, share some of that interest and enthusiasm will run itself off because some people I know are not map people. Here's the watershed, and the Black River begins right here and flows on down. Wilmington is right here. Fayetteville is up here. Clinton would be right in here. And so Elizabethtown is somewhere right in here, is an old river town on the Cape Fear. Ivanhoe, that area was right about in there. But what this shows is this is LIDAR imagery. This is shooting down basically radar onto the Earth and measuring the signal coming back. And you can tell pretty darn accurately how high something is. So this is basically a relief map showing elevation based on this technology. Down here, this color, you're close to sea level. And there's the river right there. And this is where it meets actually the Cape Fear. And at this point, it's tidal. The river is tidal. It's got tides going up and down. It's coming out of this up area up here, and it's got these more deeper valleys. The Cape Fear is coming down here. It's got a very wide river valley there. And if you kind of notice, the Cape Fear, they're pretty sure used to come down and go like here. And it's been moving southwards, pushing itself into this higher land here to where, if you know Elizabethtown, you're up here in downtown, the courthouse, and you go across to the river or go down to the Tory Hole Park where there was a Revolutionary or Tory War battle down there. You drop, 100 feet, something like that? A good bit. So there's an abrupt drop off there. But there's the Cape Fear moving down, moving in that direction. One of the reasons is this land is rising. This is we call this the Cape Fear Arch. There's a fault right up here, just south of the Neuse River, and it's rising up here more than it is down here. And just this part, rising kind of like that. And this way, just as I find it intriguing, and that has shaped so much. It's happening now, but it's incredibly. I can't remember, millimeter, 2 millimeters every 100 years, or something. But over millions of years, we see the effect. These look like they're mountains here. That's up there around Fort Liberty, and the Sandhills. Up there. Now, the upper part of the river, which is I'm going to say is like here. It's you got this valley in which the river is going back and forth. The river is swifter. It's beautiful. It has the best bottomland hardwoods on a blackwater system in the state, and that is as of the Natural Heritage Program, which monitors and manages and evaluates all these things. So it has been my target. The old cypress tend to be down here, but I'm interested in the whole thing and trying to protect it. So the upper lands has a lot of bottomland hardwoods mostly with cypress sloughs. There's some cypress knees in here, big old oak trees, other trees in there. For whatever reason, there's been a lot of timbering that goes on, and you can pull trees out of the wettest places you imaginable. I mean, they have the technology to do that. But just the people who own this land mostly have let it be and enjoy it like it is. And if someone is trying to, is interested in selling their land, I mean, we've kind of like, hopefully they are aware of us, and maybe I've reached out to them in the past. As in one situation, a piece of land right here where the river has come up to this bluff. So there's like a 60-foot high bluff we're going to get. The woman who owned that land, I reached out to her, back in the 90s, and no, not interested, no thank you. Wrote a letter, hold on to it. Then 10 years later, I'm ready. And that's the beauty of the Nature Conservancy and doing conservation work, because a lot of landowners, if they know of us and know our interest in it, they love their land. And so they'll give us basically first dibs at trying to work out a deal. Of course, if we can't reach an agreement, doesn't happen, but that we have that leg up over just other potential buyers just because they like what we do and they like seeing it saved. But the river, going back to what the river is, this is the river looking down from that bluff. Here's the river snaking its way through the floodplain. That right down here, the river does this weird, and it looks like a duck head. And there's the duck head. That's just a picture, aerial picture from there. I'm gonna show you another video of this bluff, and this is from a drone. And this is in May when that bluff is like pretty sheer. It's full of mountain laurel, and it's all blooming right now. There's Galax area. It's kind of like, it really is like being in the mountains. And it's just that one bluff there. There's mountain laurel here and there, but this is just where it was dense. So really kind of a beautiful place. The upper part of the river, like here, has beautiful hardwoods that are just worth saving. Up in these upper areas, you also get some things like Venus flytraps, sundew, that's threadleaf sundew, which is a really beautiful little small plant. Both of those plants eat insects. They're both carnivorous. In the middle there is a rare snake that we actually just walking along stumbled upon, a rainbow snake. You can sort of see why he gets his name like that. That's really an aquatic snake. Its favorite food are eels that have come in from the ocean and swim up to breed in the waters and live in the rivers.
How far from Wilmington are those Venus flytraps? Does the crow fly?
Well, that picture, I don't know where that picture came from. That picture may be a flytrap otherwise. But I mean, of course, Venus flytraps are within 100 miles of Wilmington, but they have been hit pretty hard. There's a population up here, it's just along the roadside, underneath the power line, where the power company has mowed. And that's basically, it depends on fire to keep things open, the Venus flytraps do, and a lot of other plants. The mowing is a surrogate fire for that things. We manage a lot of our lands, not down in the swamps, but a lot of our uplands and longleaf pines. We try to do a lot of burning. And Venus flytrap, down in that corner of the state, is one of the targets, one of many of our plants and animals that we're trying to conserve. But really, it's just that corner of North Carolina is the only place in the world. Maybe a little South Carolina.
What about the pitcher plant?
Pitcher plants are more abundant. There's several species of those, and I know we have 4 in the green swamp, the only 4 that are in North Carolina, and some of them peter out. Up here you have a couple, the tall ones, trumpet, and then a short one, which is a purple pitcher plant.
We had them at Camp Rockfish, and that just counts. I used to take big hikes out with kids and show them to them.
Well, I remember coming down here and going hunting, quail hunting, with my grandfather, my uncles, and so forth, and we'd be out in the woods. And I wasn't that good a hunter, but I'd be sitting there just looking down at the thing. Of course, it was in the fall of the year, it's sort of like things were turning brown or whatnot. But then I remember coming upon pitcher plants and being intrigued by them way back then. All right. The upper section, I would say, is from the beginning down to where it starts getting this more light color, and that's where mostly the very good quality bottomland hardwood forest is. The middle section, from about here down to here, is where you get some of the better stands of cypress. There's one stand in particular, a couple hundred acres of, it's called the Three Sisters. And I'll mention and show that. A lot of these pictures of the old cypress come from that area. So it's more swampy, not pure water like down low where it's tidal. But you have a lot of big trees. There's animal life, bird life, the owls, beautiful old trees. Some of these are probably older than that 2,624-year-old tree. We don't know. Some of them may be old, but they're hollow, so you can't tell how old they are. Wildlife.
I just wanted to know, what is the reason it's called a bald cypress?
That I don't know.
What's that?
Why is a bald cypress called a bald cypress? There's another species, pond cypress, that tends.
Oh, so it's a geological bald. Like Bald Mountain.
Well, I don't know. I just know that there's 2 species of cypress in North Carolina. Pond cypress, if you go out some of these Carolina bays, if they're burned, that you can have pond cypress in a lot of those. And the bald cypress is more in the water, deeper water alongside these rivers and streams. I'm not very good at telling them apart. There's subtle differences.
Biggest difference is size. Pond tends to make 60, 70 feet. Balds will make 120. But
Yeah, I haven't seen huge pond cypress before, so I assume you're right.
they are difficult to tell apart.
Yeah, there's a difference in the leaves, but. Okay, this is a video through some of these an old growth cypress stand. You can see the water down there. A lot of that wood in a dry spell, it would be less water down there. But the oldest ones, you can see how up high that for example, that tree, it's a flat top, like a lot of trees do when they get old. But then you see these branches break off and fall down, leaving open wounds, and sometimes you can get rot in there. But great places for animals to roost in, it's just part of that old wizened look of these trees. Beautiful things. And then the lowermost section, what I call the lower Black River, begins right around here is where you start getting the tidal influence, all the way down to where it runs into the Cape Fear River right here. So here the water is wider. It can be very placid, but I have actually been on, I was on a canoe and was like heading back to where the put-in was, and the tide changed, and suddenly we were paddling upstream. Sometimes if you can be going downstream, but if the tide's coming in, you're working. You're working to get there. So much shallower, and but the thin layer, it's very wet walking through these swamp areas, but they're there. Was there a question?
I was saying, is the tidal area water brackish?
I think the surface, two factors. One, I think the surface is fresh. The salt water comes up underneath. It's more dense, so it comes up. But it's also a question of how much outflow there is. During a drought, you can get water going up, salt water coming up pretty far. There's a locking dam on the Cape Fear River that seemingly, surprisingly, is pretty far inland, but it's tidal below that locking dam. And during some extreme drought periods, there was concern that there was a wedge of salt. They could track it, measure it. It was getting up to close to the water intake for the city of Wilmington. And, and so, and whatever, it started to rain again just in time.
They have fish, rockfish, striped bass running up into
Yep.
those waters. That's where they lay their eggs.
There are a lot of what are called anadromous fish, rockfish, striped bass, sturgeon, whatnot, that primarily live out in the salt waters, and then they come in up these streams to lay their eggs in the spring, and they can go far up. I mean, Rockfish Creek in Fayetteville, or near Hope Mills. I mean, that's named for that fish. The locks and the dams then just block them, and it sort of ruins it. But on those dams, they try to open. I mean, they're not hardly using the locks and dams anymore. There's not much barge traffic, but they try to open and sort of get fish up and then down during that time, and some do. And on locking dam number 1, there is a. I'm going to go back. Locking dam number 1 is probably about right here, or somewhere in here. The first dam on the Cape Fear River. There's 3 of them going up there. They have built a rock wall down below it, and it's actually neat if you ever down that way and go and see it. It's just basically instead of a dam, you got a big rapids, huge rapids. And the idea is the fish can make their way up those.
Question about the blacktop. I live down east, worked in Boca County for a long time. And I was told by several of the timers that blacktop is a result of hurricane. Is that the truth for that?
Well, hurricanes do knock things out, but Cypress is pretty resilient to those storms. I mean, the root system and everything in the wood is pretty strong. I mean, I don't think they'd be that old if they were easily succumb to hurricanes. My thinking on flat tops, why they exist, because it's a lot of trees do that. Longleaf pine do that. A lot of other trees kind of go up, and they get to a certain height, and then they just start spreading out. Because I think it's just, they're competing for the sunlight, and if they're high enough to where there's nothing going to be blocking the sun, they don't have to continue up. That's my thought process. I don't know. Get a scientist, I don't know what they would say. Some of the animals that down in that lower tidal swamp forest, you got, of course, gators, a lot of bats. including, and there are a lot of rare bats these days, use those trees and the hollow trees for roosting. Very important areas. Wood storks. Wood stork is an endangered, no, I think it's gone to threatened species now of bird. Hunted almost to oblivion back in the, 100 years ago when people trying to get the feathers for hats and so forth. They're making their way back into North Carolina. They have established some rookeries and they like these, on the Black River, lower Black River. What they like is nesting in these trees over water. I mean, to protect against raccoon, other predators that may get there. Having alligators below them is actually a good thing for them, probably. Keeps the raccoons and possums at bay. There's a prothonotary warbler, beautiful bird. Loves to nest right alongside these rivers.
Isn't it rare?
Prothonotary? It's not a listed species in any way, not rare, but it's in decline, like a lot of songbirds are. The water itself, and the Black River was designated an outstanding resource waters back in around 1990, give or take a few years. Here's a couple of these anadromous fish, the shad. Rock bass, striped bass or rockfish would be in that category, and sturgeon. A lot of sturgeon have gotten very, very rare. There's very few, but they do come up these streams and will nest. A lot of small. This is a rare fish, a little minnow-sized fish. Mussels. Mussels have taken a big hit, and a lot of our waters, mainly because of pollution. Sedimentation too, because the number one pollutant in our waters is mud, is sediment. When the rivers turn brown, particularly ones that come out of the Piedmont, and it just doesn't allow sunlight to get down to the bottom for aquatic plants, and it can smother a lot of things. And these you can see that mussel over here, the yellow lamp mussel. It's opening and it's siphoning, sucking in water and sending it back out and filtering out any microscopic animals that it can eat. But mud, too excessive mud, it can just clog it up. So mussels have taken a hit in a big way, but here are three rare ones. There's several more. That are found in the Black River. This is a little mayfly that is rare, and it likes to, the larvae or the nymph, the aquatic stage of that insect likes sandy bottoms, sort of swift flowing sandy bottoms of the rivers, and they kind of can get just messed up with all the activity in the sediment and the mud coming in.
Is human pollution a problem on the Black River as it is on the Cape Fear?
It is just runoff, not like PFAS and those things. No, I don't think that. At least I'm not aware of it. No, there's no known source. There's not a factory up in the watershed. Nutrient runoff, sediment runoff. Those are big. I asked Dr. Staley, the tree guy, once if he could see any change in ring growth. He didn't have an answer really for this, but that sort of coincided with certain changes in the watershed upstream. The clearing of the lands and the widespread advent of farming, and then particularly at post-World War II, fertilizers. Before, but probably in a bigger way afterwards. Did that change? Could you detect anything in the tree ring growth? He didn't have an answer, but.
Is that mayfly you have there the same one that creates such a huge problem at Lake Waccamaw?
Different species. Not that I could tell them apart, but this is sort of confined to fast-moving streams, not, or faster moving waters, not like a lake. But I've been at Lake Waccamaw, and it's neat when they come out. I mean, they're sort of, you hate driving.
Yes. Better have lots of water in your windshield washer.
Okay, what have we been doing on this Black River? Over 18,000 acres protected along the stream and in the watershed. And I'll be mindful, there's up here, just off this map, there's a 2,100 acre project that we bought a long time ago. It's got an endangered plant on it. It's now owned and managed by the North Carolina Plant Conservation Program, which is under an agency under the Department of Agriculture. It's called Pondberry Bay. And then up this creek, way on up, at Clinton north for 16 miles, there was a piece of land owned by Federal Paper Board, and then International Paper, and they were selling it, and we bought a bundle of properties in 2002, 9 different projects over, not just here, some on the Black River and some over in Pender County. 38,000 acres at that time, but there's almost 5,000 acres, just a long thing, 16 miles long, on the headwaters of Great Coharie Creek. That's Great Coharie Creek. That's Little Coharie Creek. And then Six Runs Creek runs up this way.
Now, for the Coharie Indians preserving some of that water too, don't they have some things going?
They've got things going, and we're doing a lot more talking with them. Have some areas where they can do get out and about, have some tribal events, and particularly places to bring up and educate their youth. So the Coharie tribe, I know the tribal center is north of Clinton. And let's see, just so you know the colors, if you can't see, we've had a hand in most all these pieces of land. We work with the state, the Wildlife Commission owns these purple ones, but we were involved with the protection of those. Green are pieces that we own outright. Blue, like up there, and there were a couple here, but we down below here, but we bought the land later. A conservation easement on those, and that's where somebody we either purchase or we receive a gift of the rights to use that land in certain ways, which basically the timber rights primarily, or the right to mine sand and gravel, the right to develop the land. And it basically, it takes it out of the owners. We're buying those rights. The owner still owns the land underneath it, and they still have to pay taxes on that land. But that they cannot cut the trees. They cannot develop the property. And that's the way they can, as I say, they can monetize their trees without having to cut them. And it's a permanent thing. So it's permanent protection. The North Carolina Coastal Land Trust is a partner. They're a smaller land trust, but they operate throughout much of the coastal plain. Very good people, very effective people, and they have one preserve, one thing they bought, and then some conservation easements in Orange up in this section, and then Moores Creek Battlefield is right down here, where those Scottish ancestors kind of lost. Sorry. What do we want to do? What do I want to do there? Brown is the lands that we have protected. Green are those areas that I've mapped that are, I think, need to be protected, and I would like to protect, and I would like to, and I've talked to some of these landowners before. They're not interested in doing anything at this point in time. Fair, that's good, but we, hopefully it'll be like that woman who called me 10 years after the fact and said, I'm ready, that something will happen in these sites here. So this is a very scientific process of evaluating these things. Some friends and I got in canoes and just paddled down, and I had maps, and I was jotting down notes of what I saw from the boat on either side to know, like right there's nothing I'm not interested in that because the river's been whacked over or just something about it is not there. There's a few places like right up here where there's a development on the river. People having a nice place out there. It's been flooded badly in these storms, and you see a lot of damage resulting from that. And then we're about at the very end here, but I want to give you the bigger picture and bigger vision of what we are trying to achieve, and not just me, but others that I work with, and that is this is what we call our longleaf roadmap. It was a planning process a few years ago where, through all sorts of data, it was a mapping exercise of in green are high-quality natural habitat that are really fire-dependent systems, longleaf pine and some of the Pocosin and Carolina Bay systems that also depend on fire. But they were in pretty good shape. This does not show land that is protected. A lot of that green is protected. There's Fort Liberty. There's the Sandhills Game Land. I mean, Laurinburg is right here. Okay. Yellow is the land that is between those green blocks where, according to the computer model, it seemed the most likely to try to connect this to this, all the way on up, all the way on over. Croatan National Forest is here. Uwharrie National Forest here. This is a linkage we like to try to do, is connect Fort Liberty and the Sandhills Game Land up to the Uwharrie National Forest. So in a sense, ideally, there could be an animal, a bear, who's up here in the Uwharries, and they could safely walk all the way to the Croatan National Forest, and then turn around and go back. That would be the ideal. It's hard. It's a challenge. The Black River is right here, and it's part of it. Some of these lands are really preserved, are conserved because of the Black River. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what I would like to see done. It's a vision, but one just you do one little brick at a time. So that's all I have. Oh no, not quite. Visiting the Black River, it's accessible. There is right here. This is at Ivanhoe, where the Black River Presbyterian Church was. These are Wildlife Commission boat ramps, so you can access the river like that. There's some private places here along it to do it. The place down here is where the oldest trees are. This section, if it was one section to do, it would be that. And this is a blow-up of that map, of that area. Here's the river coming down. Ivanhoe is north of this. There's a private boat landing you can get to right here, Henry's Landing, and you paddle on down. And then a weird thing happened just gradually over time. The river filled in. Right here, the channel. The water, these are swamps on the side, and the water was just pushed out to the sides and was flowing through the swamp. And the channel in the late 90s was the last time I was ever able to get a boat through there. It's now just grown up. It's just trees. And water. When it floods, everything's wet underwater. So what you have to do, and there's two places where there's a lot of water flowing off to the right. You're going downstream, and you go out in this channel, and then you're sort of weaving your way through the swamp forest. It's really quite enchanting. And the only thing you have to worry about is poison ivy. But, and even there, you can avoid that pretty easily. This is all old growth cypress. This is where that 2,600-year-old tree is located, somewhere in there. This is called the Three Sisters stand of old growth cypress. Down here, there's a lot more old growth. This is where some of the drone footage was taken. Down here, that's a beautiful section. And then here's Highway 53, and there's a private, someone behind someone's house. They allow people to come down, put in or take out boats, have a little mailbox, put in a few dollars. And then right down here is a Wildlife Commission landing, Hunts Bluff, where it's free. It's pretty much right about here is where it becomes tidal. Up here, it's still sort of flowing downhill, although it's very placid throughout much of it. But you can, and there's an outfitter down there named Charles Robbins, a great guy. But if you ever wanted to have a trip, I set up to do this section here. Upstream, equally beautiful, but just different. Not the old growth cypress, but the beautiful hardwoods. And with that, that's my last slide. Questions? Any other things?
Do you know if Dr. Staley has cored any metasequoia?
So the sequoia out in California?
No, China.
China? I don't know. I know he's done a lot of trees, and I don't know where he's gone overseas. He did, there's a cypress in Guatemala, he's cored those. Cypress up in Virginia and elsewhere in the southeast. A lot of old oaks on the prairie, on the edge of the prairie. And then you get out in the dry southwest, there's a bunch of old, that's where the bristlecone and some of the juniper and things that could be, they look old,
It might be a whole nother talk if it is, you can say so. What's the major difference in the ecology of that and the Lumbee?
The Lumber River? Not much. They're both sort of similar in terms of, the source of the water, intercoastal plain, sandy soil, as opposed to Piedmont, which would be more muddy waters. I'd say ecologically not that much different. Probably different histories a little bit, but although both of them,
Or Blackwater?
both are Blackwater rivers. Blackwater being they don't originate from the Piedmont where you get a lot of mud, and the black comes from tannins that leach out from partial decomposition just down in the wetlands and the swamps.
Why has there not been development along the Black River? It doesn't seem to be.
No, people will do stuff, and then and then Hurricane Matthew or Florence comes and runs them away. The population isn't there. Now, they're fishing cabins, little cabins tucked away that people just get away at. And you'll see little modest things. They're getaway places, not permanent homes. But only on high grounds. A lot of it is you need higher bluffs. There's not a lot of that.
Is the ecology in the Congaree pretty similar to this?
Now, that's a brownwater river. That's coming out originally from the mountains, and so it's muddy. And so you got a much more sediment load, and when it floods, there's a lot more sediment falling to the ground, and it enriches the soil, And therefore, the trees grow much bigger there because they're basically fertilized. I mean, and it's a natural type thing, although supplemented with whatever runoff. Than down here where it's just. And I have to always think back to like what was it like before Europeans started to impact the landscape, and where you have a big storm event and you're not going to get a lot of erosion because there's a dense the land is covered by dense vegetation in most places, and it would probably not much sediment at all. A little more now because there's fields, but on the Congaree, tons because of just is coming off the Piedmont and the mountains.
And are feral hogs a problem up here yet?
The Black River, not so much so yet. Waccamaw River, yes. Probably on the Lumber River, but I don't know for certain.
The Congaree's got a real bad problem now.
Hogs, feral hogs will tear up the ground. All of that. You go and you see where they've been. It's like someone's been plowing everything, and it's in the middle of the woods. I've seen it, but not on this river yet. And people, I think, there's, the Wildlife Commission and a lot of people would like to see it, if hogs begin to make appearances, to try to deal with it sooner rather than wait. But then you have some people who maybe go out and release hogs. There's always that. Somebody wants to go out and hunt hogs.
Are they still cutting and sawing cypress?
Yep.
Green Brothers Lumber Company in Elizabethtown has cut a lot of cypress from the Second World War on when they closed it.
Yeah.
It was the largest sawmill under one roof.
The Corbetts in Wilmington, they were specializing in hardwoods and cypress in a big way. And they can cut. They can go into super wet places and get those trees out. Unfortunately, and these trees, they're old wisdom, and they're probably hollow. And probably one thing they were not cut is because they were not considered valuable. Because it was just the quality of the wood was not something you could really use.
They pulled a lot of logs out of Cape Fear and Wilmington that came to Corbett Brothers. And they lost logs in the river.
Yeah, there's a whole little small industry of recovering sunken old logs. Anything else? Thank you.
We're indebted. A lovely view of this lovely place that we live in. Next month, Dr. Jamie Martinez from Pembroke comes back to us for 3 presentations, and they're going to be very special. She has been invited by the National Historical Society to do 3 presentations in Gettysburg in June. She is going to try out her 3 presentations on us. She will be one of 3 presenters from the whole United States. So it'll be a lovely time in March. Watch your calendars. Friends, go in peace.